An album a day is my exploration into the Korean music scene. This podcast will cover mainstream, indie, and some underground artists within the scene and provide both factual and opinionated commentary. The biggest benefit to sharing my thoughts this way is that it will hopefully expose you to more great music and exploration of your own. Okay, we got a lot of extra sounds going on, y'all, but I am in front of the microphone. What's going on now is something that I've never done, at least not in this way. GMPD, aka Great Moments in Production and Delivery, is something that we've done for years at this point on YouTube with my audience of Megwalas. And it's always a live, interactive experience where we have the opportunity to further explore good moments, great moments in an artist's discography. This is not the same as an album review. And unfortunately, when we gave it a shot a few weeks ago, right before all hell broke loose internationally, the Wi-Fi connection was just not solid enough to do it whatsoever. You all have heard me mention multiple times that where I live currently is not conducive to being a live content creator's life. So we're going to do this a little bit different. We're going to go through the histrionics, in a sense, of Mr. J Park and give you some of the highlights that you'll need to listen to on your own because we just don't have the freedom nor flexibility to play the music on here. So let's get into it after the drop.
You're tuned into an album a day. Show, start.
The artist that we're speaking about right now has a very interesting history. He went from being a b-boy to a rapper, a singer, a songwriter, a record producer, a record label CEO. He's all about hip hop. He's all about R&B. And in other circumstances, if I was just talking about any other American, you would instantly be like, oh, okay, we're talking about somebody black. Nah, not at all. We're talking about Park Jae-bom, better known to the majority of consumers as J Park. So J Park is American, don't get me wrong. We're not knocking ethnicity whatsoever here. But when you hear all of those type of caveats, those different facets of who he is, based on the fact that I mentioned hip hop, there is a quicker connotation to the American hip hop scene, which is predominantly African American. Diversity has changed that and it will continue to do so. We're not here to talk about the nuances of that. We're here to talk about great moments in production and delivery in his discography. So J Park, born April 25th, 1987. He's a Seattle boy, so Seattle, Washington. Shout out to them. He was actually born in Edmonds, Washington. But the man, as I said, has a variety of occupations. He also has been in the game since 2008. Now, tying this in more appropriately to an album a day, because GMPD is not something we do on this show. I'm hoping this in the next one is just a twice/once in a lifetime thing. And we'll be able to get back to live streaming them the ways that it always has been. But tying it into hashtag A3Day, the thing that makes him familiar to some of you who have been listening to the show since the start is the fact that J Park used to be the leader of 2PM. Several months ago in season 1, we did the entire discography of 2PM, JYP Entertainment label. So within his history, he was a member of that group, which means he was a part of the record label JYP. More famously, he's associated with AOMG, which is that of his own, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. He's also done some dabbling with higher music, and most historically, J Park is a part of Rock Nation. So not only did this gentleman do some unprecedented things in his own career in terms of the foundation of his own label, he also broke the mold by being signed to a major distribution deal with Rock Nation. So it's an interesting history. It's an interesting history that he's been at for 12 years at this point, at least 12 that we can physically see. So I want to give you a little bit of background on him before I get into a little bit of my opinions about his performance quality. So as I said, he was born in Edmonds. That's just a part of the Metro Seattle area. He was always a hip hop head. Now, I want you to be fully aware of that. This is not something that he just threw on as a vibe, as a style to gain interest. No, 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 no. He always been about hip hop. Always has been. And his way of connecting to that music was through breakdancing. So he did breakdancing right down to the point of doing it during lunchtime practices. He didn't care. He'd be at school doing whatever he could. He'd listen to hip hop, listen to rap in his early teens. And then when he was in high school, which aka early teens, when he was in high school, he started actually taking on the opportunity to write for himself. In 2003, Lord have mercy. It sounds so weird saying 2003 to think that that was like almost 20 years ago. And I graduated high school in 2003, and it just makes me feel very archaic. Oh my God. He's not far off in age from me. When I said earlier that he was born in 1987, he's 32. So we're close in proximity. It just sounds so weird. Okay, so in 2003, Jay Park became one of the first members of this b-boy group out in Seattle. It's called Art of Mu. Look at that. That was hot. I got tongue tied. Well, we know this is an authentic recording if that's the case. If I'm out here struggling speaking, he got tied in with this b-boy group called Art of Movement, AOM. Now, put two and two together. You got AOM and you have AOMG. So obviously, we're putting you know, a G onto something that already existed. So he spent so much time focused on all this. He spent so much time focused on all of this break dancing, this hip hop, this rap, this whole vibe that his family was like, how about you try to do something with this and make it a career? So his mom, at least that's what the reports have always been, that his mom is the one who suggested that he auditions for JYP Entertainment. And that brought him to Korea in early 2005. I mean, for real early, like January. And he was able to do more training in dancing, rapping, singing, and of course, learning the language. He did not speak Korean fluently prior to coming there. And he's spoken in interviews and things of that sort how overwhelming it was at the time to just get acclimated to a whole new country, a whole new way of living, a whole new way of interacting with others, learning your mother tongue. And well, not so much mother tongue because he's American born, but ethnically, this is his historical language. It was a lot for him, which is highly understandable. Like you trying to live your life and do you and get onto the path of stardom, but you have all these other auxiliary things that are necessary for you to be able to succeed in this environment. And that can be a little tough. So he eventually completed all that training. He also completed some education at Kook University. Kook University is in Korea. That's why the name sounds a little interesting. It's usually abbreviated as DKU or DU, and it's in Yongin in Cheonan, South Korea. And it's been around for a while, so this isn't something that just popped up. I know we're going to eventually get to some of the artists who went to some of the schools that passed out degrees. We're not there right now. So his first appearance was with the 2 a.m., 2 p.m. conglomerate, the one day aspect. We've spoken about one day because we've already spoken about 2 a.m. and 2 p.m. So he was the front man of the group. He debuted September 4th, 2008 as a group member. And then you have all that history about what goes on with 2 p.m. We're not talking about them though. And we're particularly not talking about them because he got himself in a position that did not go over very well. Um, I don't know if I want to get into detail about it now because at some point in the future, when we start talking about solo artists, he's going to come back around. So, to expedite that, because I want to maintain your interest, to expedite that, we'll basically say choices were made. He left the group. He had to come back home to America, get himself emotionally realigned, and basically start the way that many people before him, Justin Bieber, Jesse J, many people who came after him, I would say, not necessarily before, but after him did the same. Eric Nam as well, Ailey too. Um, Actually, I think I have my facts on Eric Nam incorrect. These are other soloists that I'm mentioning, both in the Korean scene and outside of it. But what I'm using that for is to basically say he had to start on YouTube. He had to find a path back into the industry by way of YouTube. So we'll talk a little bit about that in just a moment. Hey y'all, Ashley here, better known as Multifacetedacg, and I want to thank you for checking out my podcast and rolling with the magic that's going on this show. If you happen to be listening to this on iTunes, could you please be a kind person and go right into the podcast and make sure to mark it and possibly leave a comment? Those things help with the exposure and the increased opportunities that come along with being a podcaster. It only takes a couple of seconds. I appreciate it. Bye, y'all. Now, we've talked very briefly about his history, and I cannot overemphasize the word very briefly. We talked about some of his occupations, some of the labels he's associated with. He has a lot of artistic associations, such as 2PM, JYP Nation, Cha Cha Malone, a producer, Doke E, The Quiet, Art of Movement, Dummy or Dumbfounded, So Real Crew, Higher Brothers, Hoodie, Simon Dominic, Honey Cocaine, Gray Loco, and sometimes even Jesse. So there's a lot of people that he's willing to interact with, perform with, and things. But he did have to come back on the scene by way of YouTube. Prior to him having that group stardom experience, he was just like the rest of us, just like a content creator such as myself. From his efforts at the time of this recording, which is March 19th, 2020, he has 5 studio albums, 35 music videos, 4 EPs, 27 singles, 5 soundtrack albums, 4 promotional singles, and only 1 official mixtape. But you will find him doing freestyles all over the place. So now that we've talked about that, let me go ahead and give you my personal opinion. He's both an R&B artist and a hip hop artist. For some people, the great appeal is him as a singer. Not for me. Not in the least bit for me. When I want to hear Jay Park, I want to hear Jay Park rap. I live for his delivery and the things that he writes as a rapper, be it in English or in Korean. I believe he's nice with it. Stupid nice with it. Hearing him sing, however, I could really do without that in this life or the next. That's not to say he doesn't have some songs that I enjoy, but I'm not very big on a light, wispy singing voice from a male, and that is his natural delivery. And he's not the strongest singer, but my opinions aside, this man charts. This man sells. So clearly, I'm in the minority. There are entirely too many people who appeal to what it is that he releases. Just to give you some statistical data, when he got back on the scene, it was 2010, 2011, 2012-ish. So just to give you a quote from the English Wikipedia, quote, in 2011, Park released his first Korean mini album, Take a Deeper Look, consisting of 7 songs, mainly written and composed by himself. In the United States, the album debuted at number 3 on the Billboard World Albums chart and at number 26 on the Billboard Heat Seekers album chart. The mini album sold over 50,000 copies in 5 days after its release on April 27th, 2012. On January 11th, 2012, Park received the Disc Bunsang for Take a Deeper Look on the first day of the 26th Golden Disc Awards and was the only solo artist to receive a Bunsang, end quote. So, like I said, it doesn't matter how I individually feel. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. And this man did that Okay. Also, looking at that note where it says it was mainly written and composed by himself, that will probably explain why that album grates on my nerves. So, the first thing that he really did was release July 13th, 2010. Count on Me is the name of this, but it's actually what we are more familiar with knowing it as is B.O.B.'s song, Nothing on You. He made a cover of the song on YouTube, and this was the way that he was able to work his way back in with the EP. And there's three different versions of it on the album. You have the version that is the full melody, then you have the full English melody version of it, and then you have a Subman and KYU remix of it. So two Korean features, one in English. And this single on its own sold 21,989 physical copies on the first day of release. That's banoodles. This is tolerable, and it makes the list for GMPD because this was a cover, and technically he was under no real label at the time. He eventually got signed to one because of this, but he was on no real label at the time. So what makes it a great moment is the fact that he could have gotten a crap load of trouble for doing this. He genuinely could have, because the song is not yours. It's unoriginally not yours. It belongs to a whole nother artist, belongs to totally different writers, Bobby Ray Simmons, B.O.B. And there were a lot of financial things that would go into the backing of making sure that Warner Music Korea could get the rights to this song to be able to perform it. This was ballsy. This was ballsy AF. And it might not have come off as such to him. This was distributed through Vitamin Entertainment and Warner Music Korea, but the original song, which was released in 2009, was on three different labels that had nothing to do with the two that he distributed this on. This was done on Rebel Rock, Grand Hustle, and Atlantic. That ain't the same. This is a great moment because this was a ballsy way to step back in, let his American side appeal to what was a song that was trendy at the time, still at the time. It came out in 2009 and he did this in 2010. He found a way to work a trend. This man has an ear that never it never fails him. You might not be a big fan of his music, but his business acumen through his solo efforts is solidly reflected in the songs that I've picked in this. So Count Me In, I'm sorry, Count On Me is a good album, but his official like real-time debut as a soloist was Take a Deeper Look. I hate this album. It hurts me a lot. It sounds very childish, um, very rough around the edges. Just, I don't like it. His singing was not stable and everything. However, I can give genuine credit to the song Abandon. This is a GMPD highlight of that debut album. Abandon features Doki. Not always a fan of him. The lyrics were written both by Jay Park and Doki, but the music was done by Jay Park and Cha Cha Malone. The mix on it is what wins. There's this very, very good music engineer. It's an American record producer and audio engineer specializing in mixing. His name is Tony Maserati. And he's been involved in the New York R&B and hip hop scene since the 90s. Like, you talking Diddy or Puff Daddy, Papa Diddy Pop, whatever name you want to use for him. He's worked with Mary J. Blige, Queen Latifah. Like, he's got clout. So to be able to find someone who was willing with that much Grammy drip on your debut album to come in and mix it and bring out the quality that it definitely needed sonically. Again, this man's ear very rarely fails. Jay Park got an ear and he know who to work with. I will probably have more colorful opinions about this album once we get further into the solo histories, and his would be a while anyway. His name starts with a J, so it will be a long time before we really get to him. But Abandon is a great moment in production and delivery for that album. Thereafter, he released New Breed 1, and then something happened. Something happened in 2012. In 2011, New Breed 1 dropped December 28th. And then he came out with the full album on February 7th, 2012, called New Breed. If you are familiar with his albums, this is the one that was black and white where he's got his face and then half of his face is painted like a skeleton and whatnot. This album, sonically, stylistically, this is what made Jay Park what Jay Park is. This is when AOMG became a thing, his actual record label. You heard me mention Cha Cha Malone. Cha Cha has been a lifelong friend of his, and Chase Vincent Malone, aka Cha Cha Malone, he's been with him for being music producer, songwriter, composer. He's even been a b-boy with him. He knows his friend. He knows his brother. To heck with just calling him his friend. That's his brother. So he knows his brother and he knows what quality to bring to it. But the other thing, the other thing that really just propels this whole album, if you will, he started working with The Quiet. He started doing opportunities with Dynamic Duo, freaking legends in the game. The Beat Freaks came through with music. Um, Kim Cobb Sue, like he grabbed some heavyweights. He grabbed some heavyweights to be a part of this album. The full album has 15. Oh, wait a minute. Before I even say that, like, let me back up. Like, okay, I mentioned Dynamic Duo, but I forgot to mention that Tiger JK and Yumi Ray like graced the track with him. Like everyone saw the potential and the capacity of what Jay Park was trying to accomplish at this time in his career, and he got a hell of a sign off. Let's just be factual. He got a hell of a sign off. He had Busy and Low Def. I'm like, it's just this is an album, okay? This man came back and was like, I wrote something. It was on a couple of the tracks, but give me some time to get some experience under my belt, and I'm gonna give you an album. Go is a GMPD on here for certain. He has a song called Girlfriend, which was very, very popular for a lot of people. Not necessarily my jam, but it is a good song. I have to acknowledge it as such. Also, with his love affair for Illionaire, if you will. The 12th track on here, AOM and Illionaire, it's a good track. The whole album is very interesting. Gosh, it's really, really strange to talk about the albums and not go into depth, but that's not what this episode is about. It's not about that. Some songs that I guarantee will give you some interest is I Don't Disappoint. That's an R&B jam that he made. It slaps. It really does. A lot of people are familiar with him with All I Want to Do. That's a good song. And it's a perfect song for him because he sits within the production. So you don't have a lot of exhaustion in terms of trying to get a big delivery from him on All I Want to Do. This song also features Hoodie and Loco, and it was released in 2016 on the album Everything You Wanted. It was a big deal. A lot of people did dance covers to it and whatnot. It was very hard to escape. You heard it all the time. Another big deal song for a lot of people is Sex Trip and You Know from the album Worldwide. But the honorable mention from that would be Monet. Now, I don't care how you feel about hearing the song. It can get on your nerves from start to finish. But Monet is going to make your head bob. You're going to dance to Monet. Monet means body. It dropped in 2015. Not only was it a great moment in production because you had this heavy 808, this underbody, this belly to this song that just sent it. You had a simple keyboard, boom, 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 but you got this bass line that just sent it. The delivery of it, Jay Park's confidence was palpable. Like you can feel the sweat of it all. And video wise, there was nothing at the time. Not to say that videos did not exist. Yes, they did. 2015 was just an interesting time in Korean pop music. I I can't get into it just yet, but just know that it's one of my most favorite times in music for Korean pop. Um, but there was no video like that. You didn't have Korean women popping their butts and everything to this level in a video. You did not have this much bodily exploitation. Um, it was, and I mean, that's not to say other things didn't happen. You definitely had Brown Eyed Girl long before them, who always let the confidence of their sex appeal swagoo on everything. But it was an unprecedented thing. Just go with me on that. I promise you. Metronome is another song that I would highly recommend as a good GMPD. Metronome came out in 2014 off of the album Evolution. It's very melodic. It really flows well. It'll keep you really interested. Another honorable mention, Me Like Ya. Me Like Ya, and a freestyle that he did that's not on any album. It's called the 2013 Appetizer. Oh boy, rapped his behind off. Rapped his whole behind off on that. My most favorite song of his, though, would have to be Taekwondo. It is a rap track. And it's just understandable. His articulation, it's not like he's doing rapid fire delivery, but you don't miss any words. Nothing is minced, nor is it missed. Missed. And the beat just oh my god, the beat just sends it like like I don't know what he was thinking when he made Taekwondo. I don't know why it's emotionally breaking me down like this, but it just goes. It just goes. And it has this random breakdown in it that isn't quite anticipated. It just doesn't sound like it's supposed to happen. But a big factor of that, a big factor of that is because of who produced it. And that would be Gray. And I love Gray. I really, really do. I feel like maybe we should just have a quick moment for me to just tell you a couple things about Gray because Lee Sung-hwa. Gray, born December 8th, 1986. He's a singer and a rapper too. And I mean, I listen to some of his stuff, but I'm such a huge fan of his record production. And he debuted in 2012 and has been signed to AOMG ever since. And when Gray and Cha Cha made their way over into AOMG, it changed the dynamics of everything, which is why that pivotal album that I mentioned, excuse me, is such a big deal. When J Park released New Breed, that was the time where Gray was in the mix of all of that and hearing those sounds and whatnot, and everything just went way, way, way to the side in a good way after that. So, in essence, what I would say is he's not everyone's cup of tea. But again, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. This man charts. This man has exceptional global appeal. Yes, there have been things that have occurred that he said that are just absolutely asinine. Like, what did you think you were saying? But we're not here to critique his character. And often I have mentioned in these podcast episodes that there's going to be some times where it's going to be a little bit more difficult than not to separate the art from the artist. I just think he just had some dumb moments. But when it comes to his music, regardless of how I personally feel about it, this man ain't missing. Like, he's hitting. He's hitting on a regular basis. I think the most garbage thing he released was a track he did at Rock Nation, and even that took off. So the man knows music. He knows his genre, he knows his passion, and you got to respect that. So I hope some of the things that I shared with you in this podcast episode are enough to really appeal to you to check him out. I understand in the last episode prior to this, which was the final thoughts for Four Men, that I said I would conclude the season 2 with both him and the GMPD for Twice. Twice got way too much. So we'll kick off season 3 with Twice, but we got to conclude season 2. At the time of this recording, the world is in pandemic crises. And it's an important time to take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and regardless of your level of emotional stability, to be able to handle what's going on, be it that you're panicking at the disco or you real level head and calm about it, whatever the case may be gentle with yourselves, be gentle with others, be as sensitive to other people's perspectives as possible. We don't have to always agree, but we do need to respect each other at this time as much as possible. This is hitting some people much harder than it's hitting others. So I leave you with peace, love, and light. This season 2 has been a booger wooger. It's kicked my butt in ways I could have never anticipated as a podcast host. I love you for rolling with me. And we will return for season 3. Let's get the calendar out so we can be absolutely certain. We will return for season 3 Monday, April 27th. That gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That gives me 5 glorious weeks to get my life together. And I hope you can appreciate that. Please continue to share the episodes. Let people know that the podcast exists. Definitely the Patreon Megwalas, they are supportive in amazing ways. It's helping to financially market the show. But your retweets, your posts, and your mentions help just as much. So I appreciate it. I really and truly do. I thank you all so much, and I will catch you in season 3 of An Album a Day. Bye, y'all.
Your favorite foreign Korean music historian exploring all the industry from A to Z.
There's sponsored ads and social media hashtags, but this show is truly supported by the efforts of my Megwalas, the most amazing fan base a little entertainer could ever have. Special shout out to my Patreon patrons, the student body, and the scholars who keep my vision of becoming your favorite Korean music historian exploring all the industry from A to Z a real thing. If you're interested in supporting the growth of this podcast and supporting content, please visit patreon.com/multifacetedacg. And for as little as $1 a month, you can get in on the magic too. Interested in continuing your support at the free $99 price? I love you for it. You can still engage with the show when you retweet, repost, and share the show and use hashtag A3, and the word DAY. You can also tag MULTIFACETEDACG to get my attention. And if you're listening to this podcast on a platform other than Anchor.fm, please leave a few stars or a review to keep things growing in the right direction.